morning. We've had a rainy couple of days, so I'm excited this morning to get out and do the final big mechanical project on this bike, which is replacing the rear brake shoes and replacing the rear tire as well. So you just saw me get the bike up on the lift. So now we got the rear wheel spinning freely, and actually this is a good time to show you what the brakes are like now. So if I give this big spin, that's pressing down on the brakes, so just really takes longer than you'd like. So anyway, let's get this rear wheel off. Alright, so yesterday morning I was working at this for a while, and I ended up taking everything inside and just letting it sit with some PB Blaster. What had happened is the axle was corroded to the inner ring of the bearing. So I let it sit with oil, and just this morning I was able to give it a couple firm whacks with a hammer and just a screwdriver as sort of a punch, and I got it to start coming out. So let's get it all the way out now. Just this flat head. And then you can just put a screwdriver through the axle here and try to wiggle it out. Alright, now as for the axle, you can see it's very rusted. I think what I'm going to do is take some WD-40 and this 1500 grit sandpaper and just try to get a little bit of the rust off. Obviously I don't want to change the shape of the axle, but I definitely want that rust off, because if I ever want to get this rear wheel apart again, it's going to be a huge headache unless I do something about this. Alright, I'm going to take this rear sprocket off the rear wheel, and I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to replace this stud. Alright, so I got those nuts off. Now I want to get this sort of like dust cover off. Then this snap ring is next. There you are. Kind of an unconventional way to get a snap ring off, but got there in the end. Then, oh, there's normally a washer, but there's no washer here. So now the sprocket should just come up like that. There you are. And yeah, so it looks like this stud is just broken and just have to replace it. Alright, so now it's time to get the new rear sprocket on there. So, the way this sprocket mounts is with 4 of these studs. They're just straight metal studs on one end and they're threaded on the other, and they go into these holes. Now, of my 4 studs, one of them snapped. This was a previous owner, but I found it like this. So I went on eBay, and for like 10 bucks, you can get a new one. I don't know how necessary it was. Clearly it was running with only 3, but I figure, you know, it's an easy fix. It's an easy and cheap fix, so I'll do it. I'm gonna give all these like a little wipe. I don't think there's like a spot for each of them. They're all the same. I should mention, the ones that came off the bike look like this. They are kind of like an oval. The one that I got on eBay is only flattened on one side and it's round on the other. It fits just fine. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a year, a difference in year models. I'm not sure, but anyway. All right, so this is the new stud. I got a nut at the hardware store. It's for what it's worth, it's an M10 by 1.25 nut, and they came in packs of 2, so I'll replace another one of these while I'm at it. Alright, so just looking at the old sprocket, you can see the little stud marks are on this side, which has this ridge, and the flat side is clean like that. So flat side up, drop that on there. So yeah, you want to make sure that the little ridge on the stud is what's sitting inside the groove on the sprocket. Initially I had these tightened where the ridge on the stud was just pressing the sprocket up and you didn't have as many threads exposed. So yeah, you want to make sure those are as pushed up as they can get in there. Alright, that looks good. So sprocket is on. Now I've got to get the snap ring and the dust boot on. Oh, okay. Alright, so when you do that, make sure that you push the sprocket all the way down once you've fastened all the bolts on. That way the groove for the snap ring is fully exposed. So anyway, now this just goes over there, the dust cover. Alright, I think I'm now all set to throw the brakes back in there. There you are. And now, just gotta balance the wheel. And then we're set to put it back on the bike. Now that I got it off, I'm gonna disassemble I'm gonna take the sprocket off. Replacing the sprocket is pretty simple at the front. It has a little 15 tooth mark on this side and no mark on that side. I figure on the outside makes sense so that people can... Then sprocket goes on, the retaining plate goes on, and then it should rotate. Oh, there you are. And then I'll take these two 10mm bolts, and fasten those on there. So, like I said, pretty simple. Now I'm going to take the old chain apart. Alright, so Common Motor actually sells chains to your length, depending on the tooth count of your front and rear sprocket. I'm just keeping stock 15 teeth in the front, 35 teeth in the back, so this is a, I think, 92 link chain. Alright, so I got the rear wheel and all the spacers in there, and now I can bring the chain over to it. Alright, so to get the master link apart, I just put it in this vise and kind of worked at it with a flathead. I'm going to bring it over to the bike. There you are. Get the plate on there. There you are. Got on there. Eventually. Alright, so I have the tensioners back on both sides. Now it's just a case of tightening down this axle nut and getting a cotter pin back in there. Alright, so there's this little piece in the rear brake, and that's how that's how this gets the rear brake sort of bar gets mounted into there. So I'm gonna have to press the brake pedal down, push this out. It's gonna be kind of an awkward thing fitting this in. Alright, so as you can see here, the brakes are actually on regularly, and then if I press the lever, the brakes are off. So the issue there is that this lever is already too far forward, and then when I pull the lever, it pulls past, you saw the mechanism in there, that little pivot point. So that pivot actually works either way. If it gets pulled too far either way, it breaks.